Hey guys, how's it going? I am having some tea. I'm 5 minutes late today. What a surprise. It's been kind of the story of my day. I was 10 minutes late to my dentist appointment. Yeah, run a little late today, but that's okay. Happy you're here. I'm drinking out of one of my favorite mugs at the center. It says, "Actually, I can." Actually, I can. Yeah. And I'm having some new tea. This is a throat coat because I have a big week going on, so I have to make sure I stay healthy. So hold on a sec. Hmm, wonderful. So I'm really excited to talk about today's topic and really to launch the month of November. So what I wanted to share first was a couple of announcements. The first one is it's a really busy week here at Roots and Wings. I've got a lot of things happening. I'm going to be in Wanacue School District tomorrow morning doing a presentation on managing difficult behaviors through a mindfulness lens. I'm also going to be talking to the whole district about helping students with ADHD. So that's tomorrow in Wanacue. And also, so if you're teaching in Wanacue, I will see you there. Hi, Patty. And then after that, I have Thursday, I will be out in Philadelphia teaching my course that I teach for UPenn. Um, that is re-energizing school communities using mindfulness-based practices. So I have that session on Thursday. And then Friday, I am presenting at NJEA, New Jersey Educational Association Annual Conference. So, hi family, how are you? So, I've got a lot of things happening, and I hear there's going to possibly be some snow. So, of course, there's that, which is great lead in to what I wanted to talk about today, which is about managing worry with a mindfulness lens. Now, the big announcement that I have also is that I've been working on something that I haven't really said much about yet, but I'm going to start talking about more and more is I'm creating a digital course for teachers, my friends. So all of you teachers out there, K-12 teachers, counselors, special ed, whatever you are, general education, any educators of any sort out there, who are looking for a course in mindfulness that will help you manage the day-to-day of teaching, I got your back, all right? I just want to wrap my arms around you teachers because you are my people. I will be launching that in the new year, so there'll be more information about that to come. But the great thing about it is that you'll have access to it even if your district doesn't sign on as a whole. So far, the only way you've had access to my content is by taking my course at UPenn or through having your whole district hire me for professional development. Now you will have a chance to participate as yourself with teachers from all around the world. So I'm really psyched about it. I just wanted to mention it, but onward. Okay, so friends, I wanted to talk a little bit about worry and the difference between worry and anxiety. So these two terms are often used interchangeably, but they are actually very different things. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let me put my tea down. Okay. So worry is usually something that is more specific. So for example, I have a worry, like I just mentioned, that it might snow on Friday. This could cause some issues with driving to, Philadelphia, Atlantic City area. It's usually verbally focused, okay? So worry is usually very specific and verbally focused, meaning it's thoughts in my mind that are kind of just churning, right? Worry also sometimes will trigger problem solving. So if I have a worry that maybe it might snow, I might try to solve that problem by thinking, well, maybe I can leave it a different time of day. So the word worry is often described, hey Amanda, the word worry is often used to describe thoughts that are concerns that may or may not ever happen, but they may cause some emotional distress, but not so much that it's interfering with my daily life. Okay, they are often controllable and actionable. So when I have a worry about something like, oh God, I'm kind of worried I have to, go to the dentist later. I don't really love the dentist. They're actionable, meaning that, all right, well, I'm just going to take care of that. I'm going to go. It's going to be done. The difference between that and anxiety is that anxiety is more free-flowing and anxiety is felt in the body. So whereas worries are in the mind, anxiety is felt in the body, and it often isn't possible to point to specific thoughts, not all the time. Sometimes when we worry constantly, it can cause us to have this free-flowing anxiety in the body. Now, the thing about anxiety is that it causes a bigger cardiovascular response than when we're just worried. All of us can probably say we have worries that float in and out of our minds here and there, and maybe some of us worry more than others, but not all of us have experienced anxiety, right? So anxiety is more diffuse. It's more of a felt sense in the body. It raises the blood pressure and it causes inflammation in the body because what's happening is you're turning on your stress response when you're in a state of anxiety. So the other thing about anxiety is that there's often mental imagery associated with anxiety. So whereas worry, right, like I start thinking about the snow or I start thinking about like, ah, God, that's going to be annoying to deal with. I'm talking to myself in my mind. Anxiety sometimes has more mental pictures where I am picturing a worst case scenario. If I had anxiety about the weather or anxiety about driving in snow, I would be picturing worst case scenarios, right? I would be envisioning myself, having a horrible experience stuck in the snow, in the traffic or skidding out in the middle of the road. So the thing about anxiety also is that it lingers, right? So we might experience anxiety as a feeling of tightness in the chest. As when we wake up in the morning, we start to feel that clenching and tightening, right? Whereas we don't really know exactly where it's coming from. It's just this undercurrent of anxiousness. If you can relate to this experience, go ahead and chat that in. Many of us have experienced both worry and anxiety. But first, as we kick off this topic, what I want us to understand is that worry and anxiety are actually different. Now, when anxiety starts to become something that you experience on a daily basis, there are certain characteristics that we often see in more of a generalized anxiety disorder, right? And that would be having frequent headaches, being easily startled, so feeling kind of jumpy and on edge, right? That would be maybe someone who has generalized anxiety, always feeling like, waiting for the next disaster to strike, feeling restless, having lots of twitching in the body or jerkiness, right? Sometimes when we get really anxious, we get like an eye twitch. That can sometimes happen. We're very irritable when we're in periods of anxiety. And we tend to have a higher body temperature, so we might break into sweats more easily because, again, that heart rate is up and our body's going into that stress response. So worry, specific, usually verbally focused, a series of thoughts, but can be actionable. So having worries that come in now and again can be helpful because they often lead to problem solving. Anxiety, on the other hand, usually does not lead to problem solving. It is more bodily focused. It includes mental imagery, and it can, when it gets out of hand or when we get very anxious, we have these symptoms, okay, of, interfering with our professional and personal life. Okay, so the first strategy that I want to introduce for the beginning of our series here is to shine a light on what's actually happening. Okay, so in order to be able to make a response, to make a choice as to how we're going to manage either worry or anxiety, we have to first get clear on what's happening. Are we feeling some worries are happening in our minds? Hey, Lise. Hey, Helen. Or are we actually in a state of anxiety that really needs a different kind of a treatment, a different kind of course of action? So the first strategy is to shine a light on what you're experiencing and name it, okay? So is this worry? Am I experiencing worrisome thoughts or am I experiencing anxiety? And I want to be really clear about how we're going to say this to ourselves, okay? Saying to myself, I'm worried, or I'm so anxious, right? We're labeling the person rather than the experience we're having. No bueno, okay? Then our mind hears that, oh, I'm an anxious person, or oh, I worry all the time. These are my worries or my anxiety. We're not going there. We're going to label the experience as it's happening. So we're going to say to ourselves, as we become aware, more aware of the thinking in our minds, we're going to say to ourselves, I'm experiencing worry. I'm experiencing worry. It is something that everyone experiences. You are not alone. I have plenty of worries, right? We all have worries, and that's okay. This is normal. We're also going to get really good at noticing when worry turns to anxiety, right? And we're going to say to ourselves then, I'm feeling anxiety, okay? Because anxiety is felt in the body. So please be very specific in the way that you're speaking to yourself, because your brain hears you and it remembers, okay? And it behaves based on how you say these things. So it sounds like a very simple semantic thing, but saying to yourself, I'm experiencing anxiety or I'm feeling anxiety versus I'm anxious, I'm anxious, I'm anxious, it really does make a difference. When we're dealing with kids, it's also important for us to know the difference between a kid who tends to worry or a child who goes into that worst case scenario kind of worrisome thinking versus a child who has more of an anxiety issue. So be on the lookout. Do you notice that this child is definitely more excitable? This child tends to get startled more easily. That this child comes in every day looking tense in their bodies, feeling really rigid, right? Do you notice that about this child? So as we're working with kids, it's really important to be clear on what is it that we're dealing with, okay, so that we can choose a course of action for them. I also wanted to bring in, I like to bring in some resources. If any of you are familiar with this, I tell you, my goodness, this earpiece, I need a new one. Hi. If anybody's familiar with Usborne books, they are really wonderful, and I have this really great text called the Unworry book. Let me just bring it front and center. The Unworry book, okay, really excellent book for children, and I wanted to share a couple of the pages with you. You don't need to get the book, just take some of the ideas. So there's this one page that says under control, things you can control and things you can't control. So on the things you can't control, it's things like the weather or what's happening on the news, right? And then they write things over here, the things that they can control, okay? And you could do these verbally with kids, or you can do them on the paper if they're older children. I really like this one too. This goes into the science of being negative, and it teaches kids about the negativity bias, which I talk about all the time in my classes. And it also allows them to then shift that into noticing what it is that they're feeling positive about or things that they're really looking forward to. Okay? One more page I wanted to show you. Helping hand, all right? List 5 people you feel you can talk to about your worries, 1 on each finger, okay? So that's really a place for them to write down who is it that can be helpful for them in talking about their worries. But again, you don't need to have the book, you don't need to have the paper, but it's just a really good strategy, okay? So I would be happy to hear in the comments, what is it that you're taking away from this conversation about worry and anxiety? I would love to hear maybe what are some of your worries? There's some really interesting research that I was reading about worry, about the things that Americans are worried about nowadays, and it's quite different than the things that we were worried about before. Things like politics and climate change obviously come to mind as far as things that kids are worried about. And I was just looking for my notes on this. Let me just share a couple of these with you. Okay, so according to a Pew Research and a Gallup poll, about 45% of Americans that were surveyed said that they have felt a lot of worry the day before, compared with the global average of less than 40%. So Americans on average are experiencing more worry than the rest of the world, shocker, right? And 4 in 10 Americans, interestingly, are very worried about moral values, climate change, and the nation's public schools, okay? So really interesting when you start to kind of dig into what it is that's worrying us nowadays. And throughout the month of November, I'm going to be sharing very specific strategies about how we're going to manage worry and anxiety. And this first strategy, my friends, we're going to call this Shine a Light on It, because we're going to start to label, is this me experiencing worrisome thoughts, or is this me feeling anxiety, okay? Not I'm worried or I'm anxious. We're not going to label the person, we're going to label the experience, okay? So that's your job for this week. I would love to hear how it's going for you. I would love for you to post some comments about it, because guys, social media, the whole point is it's social, right? It is social. So it's our place to socialize. That's my talk for today. I love that you're all here. Thank you for listening. If you are listening to this and you are finding it helpful, share the video. That's really helpful for me, and I would love to get this information out. I decided to do these weekly live videos that I then put over on my website because I want to have people understand the power of mindfulness. Okay. I'm done now. I have to go meet with two of my favorite students. So we're going to be working on some other stuff about cognitive flexibility and having flexible thinking around feeling rigid. Talk to you later. Have a great Monday. I hope you guys get some rest tonight, unlike me and my kids, because it's daylight savings. Take good care. Bye-bye.